Okay. The Prince Warriors and the Swords of Rima, Volume 3 by Priscilla Shirer. Chapter 15. We're making headway right now. Chapter 15, The Rooms. If you remember now, last time a new person named Victor had showed up, and he was absolutely good at everything: basketball, skateboarding, handsome, whole 9 yards. And made Levi feel a little uncomfortable, and he wanted to talk to his dad about it. But the guy just kind of disappeared without saying goodbye. So who knows what's going to happen next. Anyway, chapter 15, The Rooms. Levi woke up suddenly, sweat pouring down his neck. Only a dream, he told himself. It was only a dream. But his dreams were getting more intense and real. Forgers and dragons and wolves. Wolves surrounding him, their teeth bared, saliva dripping from their mouths. He got out of bed and went to the bathroom to get a glass of water. His mom always told him to do this when he woke up from a bad dream, ever since he was a little kid. It usually helped. But tonight, it didn't. He still felt scared. Beware the wolf. That instruction still bothered him. Maybe that was why he was dreaming about wolves all of a sudden. He drank the tepid water from the sink and went back to his bedroom. He didn't feel like going back to bed. He was wide awake. He glanced out the window and decided to go out to his treehouse for a bit. Maybe being in a smaller space would make him feel better. He put on a sweatshirt and crawled out to the treehouse. He turned on the battery-powered lantern. He had remembered to change the batteries, and pulled out his Prince Warrior book. Turning to the sword page, he took out the kris just to make sure it was still there. He held it a moment, gazing at the small, dull blade. It sure didn't look like much. No one who wasn't a Prince Warrior would think anything of it. He thought that was kind of funny, how a thing that seemed useless and boring could have more power than anyone could imagine. Forger killing power. He heard a low growling from somewhere outside the treehouse. Probably the neighbor's dog again. Levi looked out the window. He couldn't see the dog anywhere. He turned back inside and froze. A huge creature hunched in his bedroom window, staring at him with glowing yellow eyes, foam dripping from long, sharp yellow teeth. A wolf. Levi froze. The breath locked in his throat. The wolf jumped out of the window and onto the tree branch. It lowered its head as it slunk along the branch toward the treehouse, growling in low, uneven rasps. Levi scooted against the back wall of the treehouse, still holding the kris in one fist. Sweat poured down his face, dripping into his eyes. No place to run. He was trapped. The wolf paused at the edge of the treehouse door and gathered itself, preparing to pounce. Levi raised the kris, his arms shaking. He could hear his father's voice in his head. Be strong. Be brave. Hold steady. He pressed the kris to his chest just as the wolf lunged with a savage growl. But nothing happened. His heart dropped into his stomach like a 10-pound weight as he remembered that it wouldn't work. It couldn't. He wasn't wearing his breastplate. He saw the wolf's eyes gleam, its teeth bared, the savage growling filling Levi's ears. He huddled against the wall, still holding the small knife, and shut his eyes just as the wolf leapt. Nothing happened. Levi opened his eyes one at a time. The wolf was gone, vanished. Levi shook his head, trying to clear his vision. There was something else in the space where the wolf had been. The crest, rotating slowly, glowing as yellow as the wolf's eyes. Levi reached forward and grabbed hold of it. He felt himself melting, as if his body were turning to vapor, sucked into a tiny gap between the wooden planks of the treehouse. Then the treehouse disappeared. Levi was spinning, formless, and then sensing all his desperate parts knitting together as the spinning lessened. When it finally stopped, he was standing on the edge of a crater. It looked a great deal like the top of the mountain of Rima, except there was no fire or smoke inside the hole at the center of the crater. There was only water. Above him, the sky was yellow, smeared with red-black clouds and dotted with sky pods. He knew for certain that he was back in Ahoritos. He felt a sudden wind at his back and turned to see Xavier standing beside him. Then Evan, Manuel, Brianna, and Ivy appeared, a half-second later, materializing like ghosts blown in by the wind. Each of them was holding a sword. "I dreamed I saw a wolf," said Brianna in a breathless voice. "Me too," said Levi. "Me too," said Ivy. The others only nodded as if they too had seen a wolf, but were too shocked to speak of it. "Then I saw the crest." Levi felt another sharp wind at his back, and then Finn appeared, also with his sword. "Wolf?" asked Levi. Finn nodded. "How did we get on top of the mountain?" Evan whispered. "I don't think this is the mountain," said Xavier. "At least not the same one. There's just water down there." "It's the water," said Manuel. "Look." They could see then the crest shimmering on the surface of the water, reflecting the yellow-red of the sky. "What are we waiting for? Let's go," Evan shouted as he jumped off the ledge and slid down the sloping crater toward the water. The others quickly followed. Ruach spread his long arms in welcome to the kids when they arrived in the cave after going through the water. As usual, they were completely dry and dressed in their warrior clothes and armor. "You stood up to the enemy and did not let your fear overcome you. You are doing well in your training." "You mean the wolf? That wasn't real? It was just a test?" asked Ivy, her voice tinged with relief. "I'm not too crazy about all these tests," Evan grumbled. Xavier nudged him. "The wolf is very real," said Ruach, with an ominous note in his voice. "All trials are real and necessary. Now has come the time." "Rue, we want to know about the pods," Manuel said, interrupting. "My father wants to drill into one. I don't know how to stop him." "How did the pods get through the portal anyway?" asked Brianna. "Was it because of the cipher I brought back?" Everyone looked at her. She shifted her gaze to the floor. Evan stepped forward. "No, Brianna, it was my fault," he said glumly. "I did it, didn't I?" "Not you alone, Prince Evan," Ruach said. Everyone was silent for a moment, looking from one to the other, as if wondering which one of them was to blame. Something else was brought into this world and left behind. Ruach's whole body turned toward Manuel. "Me?" said Manuel, brows furrowed in confusion. Then his eyes widened, his mouth dropped open, the realization settling on him like an itchy woolen blanket. "My shield?" he said. "The one I made? But it was destroyed in the Olathron attack." "Not completely." Ruach raised his long arms in the air. Immediately the ceiling of the cave disappeared, revealing a scene like a movie but with no sound. It was Manuel on his knees on the hilltop, moments after the Olathron attack had ended. He was reaching to pick up a blackened shard of metal from the charred ground when it caught on his sleeve and cut his arm. Manuel saw himself grabbing his arm in pain and throwing back his head, mouthing the words, "It's destroyed," and tossing the fragment away. Then the scene faded, the ceiling turning back to solid stone. Manuel shook his head sadly. I forgot about that. I didn't realize. But what harm could one little piece of metal do? The enemy will create chaos from any small thing, even a scrap. It is not the object that causes the problem so much as the choice. Do you understand? The choice I made? Said Manuel, his voice trembling with regret. I'm so sorry. I wish I'd never made that stupid shield. It's okay, Manuel, said Ivy. We've all made mistakes. Yeah, said Finn, definitely. You can say that again, mumbled Evan. So what can we do about the pod? Xavier asked. And when are we going to be in the battle? Evan asked. He figured they'd had enough of practicing and tests. It was time for the real thing. Ruach raised his arms to quiet them. Your questions will be answered in a little time, but first you have a choice to make. Follow me. Ruach turned swiftly, heading for one of the tunnels that ring the cave. The kids, baffled by his abrupt departure, hurried to follow. Ruach picked up speed as he led them down the winding tunnel, which lit up purple as he went. They turned one corner after another, their footsteps echoing down the long corridor. Soon the kids found themselves racing down a hallway that looked familiar. The Hall of Armor, Evan said breathlessly. They passed hundreds of sets of armor arrayed on the walls, each one different, some familiar and some very strange, although they were going too fast to read the placards accompanying each one. Suddenly Ruach stopped, and the kids skidded to a halt behind him. They recognized their own armor displayed on the walls, a placard under each one inscribed with their names and birth dates. It was funny to see the armor there on the wall, when they were actually wearing it at the same time. Beside each suit of armor there was a padlocked door. After all this time, the kids still had no idea what was behind those doors, for Ruach had refused to tell them or let them see. The doors had haunted them ever since they had first seen them, taunting them with the promise of hidden treasure. Even though Ruach had told them repeatedly that they had everything they needed to wage war against the enemy, it was each Prince Warrior's dream to finally open his or her door. Ruach reached into his sleeve and removed a key. It was a strange-looking key with 4 twisted cross pieces on the stem. None of the kids had ever seen it except for Evan. He recognized it immediately. This was the key he had borrowed and accidentally taken to Earth. He shrank back a little at the sight of it. Ruach held the key in his illuminated hand. Now, you may choose to open your doors. Choose? Asked Evan. Remember what you have learned, Ruach said. Nothing more than that. The kids were silent a moment, not believing the day had come. If they wanted, they could see what was behind those mysterious doors. More weapons or armor? There had to be a reason why the enemy had wanted that key so badly in the first place, when he had tricked Rook into stealing it for him. Now, finally, they were being given the chance. The kids gathered around the key, each waiting for the other to grab it first. No one moved for a long time. Then Xavier stepped forward. He reached out and took the key from Ruach's hand. He held it up, surprised that when he looked at Ruach's hand again, the key was still there. There are 2 keys? There are as many keys as are required, said Ruach. Xavier shrugged. This was a Hortos after all. Anything could happen. One by one, the other kids stepped forward to take a key. Ivy, Brianna, Manuel, and Finn. Then Evan took his turn, reaching out for the key. There was still a key left in Ruach's hand when they were done. Levi's key. Levi started to reach for the key when Ruach often repeated words echoed in his ears. You already have everything you need. If that was true, if it was really true, if he truly believed it, then why did he need whatever was behind that door? Perhaps this was a chance to prove to Ruach, to prove to all of them, that he was willing to live by those words. He took a step backward. No, he said. The others looked at him curiously. What's the matter, Levi? Asked Brianna. Don't you want to see what's in the room? Yeah, I do. But I have everything I need. Ruach nodded and withdrew his hand. Levi watched the key disappear back into Ruach's robe. He expected to feel disappointed. Instead, he felt relieved and a little encouraged. Ruach's quick retraction of his key gave him the feeling that he had made the right choice. Xavier went to his door, staring at it a long moment. He took a breath and slid the key into the lock. He held it there for a few seconds. There was still time to take it out and give it back to Ruach, to do what Levi had done. But then, for some reason, he thought of Victor. Victor had made him feel that he didn't have everything he needed after all. For the first time in a long time, Xavier had felt inadequate and insecure. Like what he had and who he was wasn't quite good enough. He had to be better somehow. Faster, smarter, more skilled. He had to know for sure that he could really make it in the world, in either world, Earth or Ahortas. He turned the key slowly until he heard a click. Unlocked. Xavier felt his heart beating heavily in his chest. He wondered if the other kids felt the same, but he didn't look around to see. Instead, he took a hold of the handle and pushed open the door. When he did, there was a brilliant flash, like the burst of a camera bulb, inches from his face. Only Xavier didn't see it. In fact, he didn't see anything, because the room was empty.